What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk to you about today. We have some breaking news about another potential area of interest that's going to be impacting the Bahamas and Florida, as well as a very big update on the Bay of Campeche area of interest. So we're going to go ahead and cover all of that right here and there. But before we get into any of that, we need to look at the NHC right here, because this is our main show right here. This is our area of interest. We now have a 50% chance of formation. We still have a 50% chance of formation. I expect that to continue to gradually increase as the system starts to organize and develop in the Bay of Campeche and Gulf of Mexico over here. But here's the situation that we have. A broad area of low pressure is forecasted to form over the southwestern Gulf of Mexico early next week. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development, and a tropical depression could form in the middle part of next week, while the system moves slowly westward or west-northwestward. Regardless, several days of heavy rainfall are expected across portions of southern Mexico and Central America. These heavy rains will cause flash flooding and life-threatening flooding, especially in Mexico as well as Texas and all those areas over there. So this is a huge thing we're going to have to pay very close attention to right here. Once again, we have a 50% chance of formation in the next 7 days. So we're going to have to keep a very close eye on it as the time continues to go on and as we start to see our signs in our satellite really start to converge right here. So ultimately what's going to be happening is we're going to be seeing a combination of two areas of energy or two areas of convection that we're looking at right here. First area is in the Eastern Pacific. This is the situation that we have right here. This is what is partly going to be responsible for the low pressure system. But the other part will be this area over here, which is the Central American Gyre. The reason that's going to be important is it's going to be a bit of a merger, and it's also going to allow a lot more moisture to develop and organize in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on right in itself. But we also have another possible area of interest that will be designated either later tonight or in the overnight hours as we get more information. In fact, Alan Snyder posted this on Twitter right here. The 0Z Euro is still on board with the Bahamas signal. Wouldn't surprise me if we get an AOI with this at 8 p.m. or maybe 2 a.m. depending on if they want more evidence right there. And what we're going to show you in a little bit is what Alan is showing here. We're looking at relative vorticity. We're looking at a lot of relative vorticity going on with this right here. So there's a pretty big chance that this could organize and develop in the next 5 days or so. Regardless, we're going to have to pay close attention to that as of right now. And we're also going to have to take a look at kind of what the conditions are looking like for all these areas right here to kind of allow for this organization and development to occur in the first place. So here's what we have starting out right here. Both of these areas have very warm global sea surface temperatures, 29 plus degrees Celsius or 84 plus degree Fahrenheit waters, no matter where you are across a lot of the regions. But with the Bay of Campeche system, which I believe as of right now still has the greatest threat and is still a possible hurricane contender, I know models have downtrended on it a little bit, and we'll get to that in just a second. We still have very warm water, and we're looking at the best conditions we have seen in the Bay of Campeche for the month of June, pretty much anywhere in the Atlantic Ocean as of right now. So we'll have to pay attention to that right over there, where this system is expected to organize and develop near the Bahamas and Florida, 28, 29, 30 degrees Celsius waters, or about 82, 84, 86 degree Fahrenheit waters, respectively, right there. Definitely something to take a very close look at right there, and that's only expected to increase as we continue to get into the next couple of months of hurricane season. Very close, big situation we're going to have to pay attention to. Ocean heat content in both these areas is also rather historic in the Bay of Campeche. We're seeing areas cracking 100 OHC across parts of the Bay of Campeche and the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, so that's something to keep a very close eye on. As time continues to go on, this system, depending on where it makes landfall, is going to be entering varying areas of OHC, but optimally, it's going to be over 75 OHC no matter where it is at this current point in time, where the Bahamas system is going to be, it's going to start off in some kind of lower OHC. That's to be expected because the warm water over there isn't exactly that deep yet. But as we get closer to Florida, as we get closer to the Bahamas, as we get closer to these very warm waters over here, it's that OHC is going to tick up, and we're going to see a possible organization and development as we continue to see other factors play into it right here. Next thing we're taking a look at right now is the wind shear. Wind shear has been pretty interesting. It's going to be fluctuating off and on, off and on, off and on. We have a very low area of wind shear right here. Pay very close attention to this. That's in the deep south right here, because that's going to be moving towards the Florida and the Bahamas over here, that lower area of wind shear, and it's going to allow for this system to possibly organize and develop over there. That's the main thing we're paying attention to right here. There is a bit of shear fighting going on the Bay of Campeche over here. We're starting to see some more hostile conditions start to intrude there, but that was to be expected. That's expected to lift as we start to see these two areas of convection start to merge and allow for a lot better conditions to organize and develop over here. Overall, shear across a lot of these regions over here. Main development region as well we're paying attention to as well. We're going to see that fluctuation. The shear has been decreasing gradually as we continue to get deeper into hurricane season. So that is something we are going to have to keep our very close eye on right here and right now. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and show you some models that we have right here. We're going to start with the European EC Fast, but using the vorticity, because what I'm paying attention to is this area right here in Florida. I want to kind of start off with this, because that way we can get use that as a basis for the rest of the operational models. Also, the European 12Z isn't exactly out, so we can kind of use this as kind of a thing to kind of help us forecast with when it comes to tropical systems, when it comes to this Bay of Campeche system and this Florida system that we're taking a look at right here. So let's go ahead and start off right here. Starting about 48 hours out, we're going to see increased vorticity across much of the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to be very broad initially, but it is going to be tightening as we get closer to landfall at this current point. I do expect this to start tightening up pretty fast, primarily due to the wind shear still being relatively high across much of these areas in the Gulf of Mexico. That could help allow the outflow to flow a lot better and allow for this thing to really tighten up and organize very fast. It's still something to pay attention to. Conditions are absolutely there, just we need to pay very close attention to it as we get more data, and we'll show you the shear and the moisture forecasts for those areas in just a second. Now, looking further out, about 120 hours out or 5 days out, we're going to start seeing this area of vorticity right here that's east of the Bahamas really start to ramp up, organize, and develop. This is going to be due to the lower wind shear values. This area in the deep south has those lower wind shear values. Those are expected to migrate over here, and we can go ahead and show you those forecasts right now to kind of back this whole thing up. Now we're going to go ahead and use the 0Z European operational model to kind of give you the shear and moisture forecasts right here. Let's go ahead and start with this. We're seeing a very low area of wind shear right here. It's really kind of where it's expected to be right now. This is that low wind shear that we're paying attention to. That's going to be kind of allowing and funneling towards this area over here, coming from as first gets pushed up by this ridge over here, and then it gets funneled down through the mid-Atlantic and allows for a pocket of lower wind shear to really set up, organize, and develop. As this tropical cyclone we start to see increased rotation over here to allow this thing to organize and develop over there. We'll talk about that more in just a second, but the shear forecast is allowing for both these systems to organize and develop with low areas of wind shear. I mean, there is this area of shear right there that could help enhance the outflow as time continues to go on, but it's something we'll have to pay very close attention to as more data continues to come in, and it's something I'm taking very seriously. And interestingly, the European is showing a shear collapse across much of the Gulf of Mexico, across parts of the Caribbean Sea for quite a while, which is pretty concerning to say the very least, because we're already seeing extremely warm waters, and now the wind shear is starting to collapse across a lot of these regions. Now, granted, it's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. However, the fact that we're starting to see these shear collapses already in the month of June is pretty concerning, to say the very least. We're already seeing a lot of fluctuation in late June and the kind of stuff we would see in early July. It's really kind of showing that neutral phase away from the El Nino is starting to take effect across a lot of these regions over here. It's definitely something we're going to have to pay attention to as more data continues to come in, but we're also going to corroborate this with the moisture forecast. Moisture in the Gulf of Mexico right now is not fantastic. If this thing was expected to organize and develop today, I tell you that's not going to happen. But if we go ahead and go 36 hours from now, you start to see a massive moisture infusion across much of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and that is expected to continue up to the deep south, and we're, as the gyre and this other area of convection in the eastern Pacific starts to take hold, it really starts to ramp up across much of these regions right there. The entire Gulf of Mexico, especially the Bay of Campeche and a lot of these areas right here, really start to get moist and allows for these conditions to allow it to organize and develop. That's why I'm paying such close attention to this, because it's going through really good conditions, and this dry air is expected to recede into Mexico and Texas. And we're expected to see a lot of impacts in Texas, expected to see a lot of impacts in Mexico. We're going to have to pay very close attention to it. And then you have this tropical system over here. Overall, things are a little bit iffy right here when it comes to moisture right there. There is a moderately large area of dry air that's going to be intruding right there. Then again, this is the 0Z European and not the 12Z operational, because the 12Z is not currently out yet. I really wish they would step it up, and I really wish they would bring it out early, but unfortunately that's not how weather prediction works. I really wish it did, but it is what it is at this current point. But yeah, we're going to be seeing some dry air, but this is a situation we're going to have to continue to monitor as we get more information right over here. Now let's go ahead and show you the models, like the operational models, and kind of how we can time this out. The European 0Z, we kind of went over this, and we're not going to be talking mainly about the Florida-Bahamas system with the European, because we already did that. We're going to be mainly focusing on the Bay of Campeche system to kind of give a corroboration of what this and other models are forecasting at this current point in time. So here's what we have going on. Starting about 84 hours out, we're going to start seeing this broad area of low pressure organize and develop across the Bay of Campeche and Gulf of Mexico. It's going to slowly move over towards Mexico. It's going to bring very heavy rainfall to Texas over here, possibly some tropical storm conditions if this system's going to be that broad over here. It's expected to tighten and then make landfall in parts of Mexico over here, but it's going to bring a lot of rainfall to San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, Rio Grande Valley, stuff to pay attention to right over here. And then it's going to be making a landfall in Mexico, causing a lot of huge flash flooding and a lot of gusty winds and everything like that to pay attention to. And if the winds get strong enough then and there, it could cause some serious wind damage, because I know the building codes in that part of Mexico aren't fantastic, at least compared to the southern part of Texas over there. So that's something to pay very close attention to over there. Next one we're going to go ahead and show you is the GFS right here. This is the 12Z GFS, so that way we can kind of talk about this area of interest over here in the Bay of Campeche, and then this one over here in Florida that's going to be impacting Florida. GFS is pretty interesting, I will say that right now. There's a huge broad area of low pressure. They want this thing to make landfall in South Texas over here, bring very heavy rainfall to the Houston area. I don't exactly know how realistic this is. The more realistic approach I'd say I would take a look at is this is going to be a very broad circulation, but it's going to really tighten up due to the wind shear, as well as the fact that it's over some of the best conditions for the month of June. So we're going to have to pay very close attention to that as we continue to get more data. And then the GFS is starting to have this system organize and develop off in the northern off the coast of the northern Bahamas over there, making landfall as a 1,005 millibar system in Jacksonville near Georgia and South Carolina and those areas before dissipating over Alabama over there. European wants this closer to Miami, and it also wants this thing to move into the Gulf of Mexico, which I think is pretty interesting. So we'll have to pay very close attention to that. But the GFS wants this thing to make landfall in Florida as well. I think it's pretty interesting to take a look at. Canadian model is up next. Let's go ahead and show you that. Canadian model is still having this thing very broad, but it's going to tighten up as it makes landfall in Mexico, but it's still going to be bringing some heavy impacts to South Texas as well and cause some very big flash flooding, as well as maybe some tropical storm to hurricane conditions if the winds get up to that strength. And then we're right afterward, we start to see a situation develop. The CMC isn't really highlighting it as much isn't highlighting it as much as the other models are, which is pretty interesting, but it wants another tropical system to organize and develop off the gyre and then move through the Gulf of Mexico and make another landfall in northeast Mexico, which honestly I don't know how that's going to happen. It wants 3 of those to do that. It's something that I'm a bit skeptical on for obvious reasons, but we'll pay attention to that for you right then and there. I mean, the Shear does collapse and everything like that, which is why I would expect something more to develop in the Caribbean Sea, kind of like what we were seeing previous, but again, we'll have to pay attention to it. NavGem is up next. Once again, the NavGem has a broad circulation. It does tighten up a little bit, but not as much as the European and the GFS. In fact, the NavGem doesn't even have the Florida system organizing and developing, although the European and GFS do. We'll have to keep an eye on it right then and there. Icon model right here. Last time we checked, it was pretty iconic because it was the only system that didn't have this thing organizing and developing. This time it does, except it's expected to move into South Texas instead of Mexico, which I think is pretty interesting, and I think it's a bit of an outlier compared to some of the other models that I have taken a look at in recent times. So that's the Icon model right there. It doesn't have the Florida system like the European and the GFS do, but I do want to take a look at the kind of the ensembles for both the European and the GFS regarding the Florida system, because I want to see kind of what the consensus is and if this thing could be a contender for something to organize and develop over here. So this is what we have. The Europeans 6Z model runs that we have right here have a couple of scenarios here and there, but overall not very much or anything like that compared to the operational forecast. So that's pretty interesting. Maybe the 12Z European will have something different. Here's the GFS ensembles that we have pulled up for you right here. This is the 12Z. It has some scenarios of stuff organizing and developing, but there's not very many scenarios of that, at least compared to what we were seeing over here in the Bay of Campeche. So overall, something to pay attention to. I think it's kind of interesting, but it looks like it's going to be more of an operational situation than a ensemble situation to take a look at. So this is something we will continue to monitor here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Regardless, there's still going to be a very significant threat for a lot of you guys tuning in on the Gulf Coast, whether you're tuning in Texas, Mexico, or Florida, as well as the Bahamas. This is all threats we're going to have to keep very close eyes on, and we will continue to update you here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're closing the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And if you want to come help us out at Storms United, or you just want to come chill and see the behind the scenes of these videos, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. Link to that is right over there. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.